I'm Opal, 67 years old now, looking back at a life spent caring for others as a pediatric nurse in Boston. My daughter Amanda was my whole world after my husband James died. I poured everything into giving her the best life possible. But nothing prepared me for that day in her pristine home when I reached for my first grandchild and heard those words that sliced through my heart. "Don't touch my baby. You're disgusting." After decades of sacrifice, those words changed everything. If you're watching this from somewhere where family means everything, go ahead and hit subscribe. Let me take you back to when my heart first shattered. My journey began in a modest home in Minnesota, where I grew up dreaming of making a difference in children's lives. That dream led me to nursing school, where I specialized in pediatrics, finding purpose in comforting sick children and supporting worried parents. By 25, I had married James, my college sweetheart, a kind-hearted accountant whose calm demeanor balanced my more emotional nature. We tried for years to have children, facing the heartbreak of 2 miscarriages before Amanda finally arrived when I was 32. We called her our miracle baby. I still remember holding her tiny body against my chest, promising to protect her, always tears streaming down my face as James snapped photos, his own eyes glistening with joy. Our perfect family lasted just 7 short years. James collapsed at work one Tuesday afternoon, a massive heart attack that took him instantly. He was only 40. The doctors said he had an undiagnosed heart condition. I became both mother and father to Amanda overnight, while drowning in my own grief. Those early years alone were a blur of exhaustion. I took double shifts at the children's hospital to ensure financial stability, often coming home to tackle homework, dinner, and Amanda's emotional needs on minimal sleep. My parents had passed years earlier, and James's family lived across the country, so we relied on each other entirely. "Mummy, when is Daddy coming back?" 7-year-old Amanda would ask, her small face crumpled in confusion. Explaining death to a child who just wants her father back, that's a special kind of torture. Despite the challenges, Amanda thrived. She was naturally bright, with her father's analytical mind and artistic talents that emerged in elementary school. Her teachers praised her creativity and intelligence. I saved every drawing, every A-plus paper, creating scrapbooks to document her achievements. Perhaps I overcompensated for her fatherless childhood, but I couldn't bear to see her miss out on anything. We had our rituals: Friday movie nights with homemade popcorn, Sunday morning pancakes shaped like animals, summer road trips to national parks in our aging sedan. I worked overtime to afford dance lessons when she showed interest, then soccer, then photography classes. Whatever Amanda wanted to try, I found a way to make it happen. The life insurance money from James went straight into Amanda's college fund. I drove the same car for 15 years, patched clothes rather than buying new ones, and took on extra hospital shifts during holidays for the premium pay. My colleagues often commented on my dedication. "Opal, you need to take care of yourself too," my friend and fellow nurse Susan would say, noticing my exhaustion. "Amanda is my priority," I'd always answer. "I'll rest when she's grown and settled." The teenage years brought changes. Amanda remained academically successful, but developed a new social awareness that sometimes translated to embarrassment about our modest lifestyle. She'd sigh dramatically when picking her up in our old car, or make cutting remarks about my practical clothing compared to the designer labels her friends' mothers wore. "Mum, can't you at least try to look more put together when you come to school?" she asked before her sophomore year honours ceremony. I'd come straight from a 12-hour shift, barely having time to change out of my scrubs. I told myself this was normal teenage behaviour. That night, I stayed up until 2 in the morning, altering a second-hand dress to wear to her next school function, wanting her to feel proud to have me there. By senior year, Amanda had blossomed into a stunning young woman with perfect grades, impressive extracurriculars, and dreams of attending a prestigious university. I spent countless hours helping her research scholarships, proofreading essays, and driving her to college tours. My supervisor graciously arranged my schedule around these commitments, understanding what this meant to us. When the acceptance letter from Emerson College arrived, along with a substantial merit scholarship I'd encouraged her to apply for, we celebrated with sparkling cider and her favorite lasagna dinner. That night, Amanda hugged me tightly. "Thanks for everything, Mum," she said. "I'm going to make you proud." Those words carried me through the pain of what came next. The day I dropped Amanda off at college marked both my greatest accomplishment and deepest sorrow. After 18 years of centered my entire existence around her needs, I returned to an empty house that echoed with silence. I stood in her bedroom doorway for hours that first night, surrounded by the posters and trinkets she'd decided were too childish to bring along. "This is what you wanted," I reminded myself, "for her to spread her wings." I threw myself into extra shifts at the hospital, finding solace in caring for other people's children while mine was building a new life. We spoke weekly at first with Amanda, sharing excited stories about classes, new friends, and the vibrant Boston culture. I savored these conversations, asking questions, to visualize her experiences, though I noticed she rarely asked about my life in return. By sophomore year, our calls grew shorter. Amanda's voice changed subtly, adopting new patterns of speech that mimicked her sophisticated new friends. She began peppering conversations with references to philosophers I'd never read and experiences I couldn't relate to. When I mentioned our old traditions or shared hospital stories, she'd sigh impatiently. "Mum, that's not really interesting to anyone outside of your nursing friends," she said once, after I'd excitedly told her about helping a long-term patient take their first steps after surgery. During her junior year, Amanda landed a marketing internship at a luxury brand company. Her occasional visits home became critiques of what she now called my simple life. "You could do so much more with this place," she said, gesturing around our modest living room where she'd once built blanket forts. "It's so basic." I smiled through the hurt, reminding myself that young adults often go through phases of rejecting their upbringing. She'd come back around eventually. I believed that with my whole heart. After graduation, Amanda accepted a position at the same marketing firm in Boston, quickly advancing due to her intelligence and drive. I felt immense pride seeing her professional success, even as the distance between us grew. She purchased stylish clothes, rented a sleek downtown apartment with views of the harbor, and began socializing in circles I could never afford to enter. During one of my rare visits to her apartment, Amanda introduced me to Tyler, a handsome investment banker from a wealthy Connecticut family. He was polite but distant, his eyes moving past me as if searching for someone more interesting at the dinner gathering. Amanda seemed different around him, laughing too loudly at his jokes, touching his arm constantly, watching his reactions before expressing her own opinions. "Tyler's family has a summer home in Martha's Vineyard," she told me later, voice hushed with reverence. "They know the Kennedys." The first meeting with Tyler's parents 3 months later was excruciating. Their subtle glances at my department store dress, their probing questions about my people and education, made their assessment clear I wasn't of their caliber. Amanda noticed, but said nothing, laughing nervously when her future mother-in-law expressed surprise that a simple nurse had raised such a sophisticated daughter. "Well, Amanda always had natural refinement," Mrs. Sullivan said, patting my hand condescendingly. "Some people just rise above their circumstances." I smiled politely, swallowing my hurt for Amanda's sake. The engagement announcement came via phone call. Amanda sounded breathless with excitement, describing the proposal at an exclusive restaurant, the custom-designed ring, and their plans for a sophisticated wedding. "Nothing too homey or sentimental, Mum," she cautioned. "Tyler's family knows everyone in Boston society. It needs to be perfect." I emptied my modest savings account to contribute $15,000 to their wedding fund, money I'd been saving for eventual retirement. When I handed Amanda the check, she seemed surprised by the amount, but quickly tucked it away with minimal thanks, launching immediately into concerns about the florist's understanding of the precise shade of cream she wanted. The wedding planning proceeded with minimal input from me, despite my gentle attempts to be involved. Amanda and Mrs. Sullivan selected everything together: the exclusive venue, the designer dress, the renowned caterer. I received impersonal email updates about decisions already made. On the wedding day itself, I found myself seated at the back table with distant family friends, rather than at the parents' table up front. During introductions, Tyler's father gave a 15-minute speech about family legacy, while I was allotted exactly 2 minutes to share my congratulations. Several guests later asked if I was a family friend, unaware I was the mother of the bride. I told myself it didn't matter where I sat or how I was introduced. My daughter was happy, successful, and married to a man who could provide her with everything. That was what mattered. That night in my hotel room, I repeated this like a mantra, even as tears soaked my pillow. The pregnancy announcement came through a brief phone call 11 months after the wedding. "Mom, Tyler and I are expecting. Due in July." Amanda said, her voice businesslike, as if reporting quarterly earnings. My heart soared despite her clinical tone. A grandchild. A second chance at family connection. I immediately began making plans, researching current childcare approaches, shopping for thoughtful gifts, dreaming of the bond I would form with my grandchild. "I'm making you a baby blanket," I told Amanda excitedly during our next call. "I found this incredibly soft organic cotton yarn, and I'm using the same pattern my grandmother used for your baby blanket." "That's thoughtful," Amanda replied, hesitation clear in her voice. "But we're actually going with a specific nursery designer who's creating a cohesive aesthetic. Maybe save the handmade things for when the baby visits your house." My heart sank, but I pivoted quickly. "Of course, whatever you prefer. Tell me more about your nursery plans." I listened for 30 minutes as Amanda detailed the French-inspired nursery with hand-painted murals and custom furniture, none of which I could contribute to in any meaningful way. In the following months, I sent thoughtful texts with links to articles about pregnancy health, drawing on my decades of pediatric nursing experience. Amanda's responses grew increasingly curt. "Please stop hovering, Mum. My doctor has everything under control." Determined to be helpful in ways Amanda would appreciate, I enrolled in online courses about modern childcare approaches, learning about attachment parenting, elimination communication, and the latest research on early childhood development. I wanted to prove I wasn't stuck in outdated thinking, despite my years of professional experience. The baby shower invitation arrived surprisingly late, just 2 weeks before the event. The elegant cream card specified no gifts over £15 due to limited transport capacity, and directed guests to an exclusive registry where the cheapest item was a $150 organic cotton onesie. I arrived early to the shower, held at an upscale Boston hotel, hoping to help with preparations. Instead, I found Amanda's mother-in-law firmly in charge, directing caterers and florists with practiced authority. She acknowledged me with a brief nod before turning back to instruct the staff about proper champagne serving temperature. "Oh, Opal, there you are," she said eventually. "Perhaps you could help by staying out of the way until guests arrive. The professionals have everything under control." I retreated to a corner chair, watching as the room transformed into a magazine-worthy celebration space, with no input from the grandmother-to-be. During the shower, Amanda was surrounded by fashionable friends and Tyler's family connections. I managed a few brief moments with her, offering my congratulations and expressing excitement about the baby. "We're so thrilled about your little one," I said, placing my hand briefly on her shoulder. "Thanks. Amanda replied, eyes already scanning the room for more important guests. Later, I overheard two of Amanda's friends talking near the dessert table. Can you imagine taking parenting advice from her mum? She's so from another era. I know Amanda says she's constantly sending outdated articles, as if being a nurse 40 years ago makes her an expert on modern childcare. I slipped away to the bathroom, fighting tears. I'd been a pediatric nurse until just 5 years ago, constantly updating my knowledge through continuing education. But in their eyes, and apparently in Amanda's, my experience counted for nothing. Despite the painful shower experience, I clung to hope. Surely, when the baby arrived, natural family bonds would form. The actual experience of becoming a mother might help Amanda understand all I had done for her. I pictured myself holding my grandchild, sharing wisdom and love across generations, healing the growing rift between us. I created a countdown calendar for the baby's due date, July 15th, and began preparing my home for eventual visits, purchasing a portable crib, child-proofing cabinets, stocking a small toy chest with developmentally appropriate options. The birth announcement came via group text message. Sophia Grace Sullivan arrived at 6:42 a.m., 7 Phelps, 2 OZ, mother and baby doing well. I called immediately but was sent to voicemail. My follow-up text, asking when I might visit, went unanswered for 2 days before Amanda finally responded. We're adjusting to parenthood. Give us a week before visiting. That week was the longest of my life. I finished the handmade quilt, purchased savings bonds for Sophia's future education, and selected a family heirloom locket to give to my granddaughter, a silver heart that had belonged to my grandmother, then me, then Amanda as a child. I planned what supportive, non-intrusive things I could offer the new parents, drawing on my years of helping new mothers at the hospital. Little did I know that this hopeful preparation was leading me toward the most painful moment of my life. The day I first visited my granddaughter dawned bright and clear. I dressed carefully in a new blue dress, purchased specifically for the occasion, applied light makeup, and packed the gifts in a tasteful bag. The drive to Amanda and Tyler's suburban Boston home felt ceremonial. I was finally going to meet the newest member of our small family. Their house was impressive, a restored Victorian with manicured landscaping in an exclusive neighborhood. Tyler answered the door in casual designer clothes, coffee cup in hand. "Oh, right. Amanda mentioned you were coming today," he said, stepping back to let me enter. "She's in the nursery upstairs, first door on the right." The house was immaculate, looking more like an architectural digest feature than a home with a newborn. I climbed the stairs, heart pounding with anticipation, and gently knocked on the nursery door. "Come in," Amanda called. The nursery was even more beautiful than the photos she'd sent. Soft grey walls with delicate white trees painted by hand, a crystal chandelier dimmed to a gentle glow, and custom furniture in pale wood. And there, in a white upholstered glider, sat Amanda, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in a cashmere blanket. "Hi," I said softly, emotion making my voice catch. "How are you both doing?" Amanda looked tired but radiant. "We're figuring things out. Sophia's a decent sleeper, thankfully." I approached slowly, placing my gift bag on a nearby table. May I see her?" Amanda turned the bundle, slightly revealing the most perfect little face I'd ever seen. Sophia had Amanda's delicate features and what looked like Tyler's darker hair coloring. My heart expanded with instantaneous, overwhelming love. "She's absolutely beautiful," I whispered, tears forming. "Congratulations, sweetheart. You've created a miracle." Amanda's expression softened slightly. After a moment's hesitation, she asked, "Would you like to hold her?" I nodded, unable to speak through the emotion. Amanda carefully transferred Sophia into my arms, and I felt that indescribable weight of new life, the same feeling I'd experienced thousands of times as a nurse, yet entirely different when holding my own flesh and blood. "Hello, little one," I murmured, gently rocking. "I'm your grandma. I've been waiting so long to meet you." I studied her tiny features, marveling at the perfect fingernails, the rosebud lips, the delicate eyelashes. Decades of nursing babies had taught me how to hold them securely while keeping them comfortable. Sophia snuggled against me, seemingly content. "She likes you," I said softly, looking up at Amanda with joy. Then I made what would prove to be a catastrophic mistake. Overwhelmed with love, I leaned down and gently kissed Sophia's forehead. "I love you already, sweet girl," I whispered. Amanda lunged forward, arms outstretched. "What are you doing? Don't kiss her." Startled, I looked up in confusion. "I just— Give her to me now," Amanda demanded, voice sharp with alarm. She snatched Sophia from my arms with such force that the baby started crying. "Amanda, Don't touch my baby. You're disgusting," she hissed, backing away from me while clutching Sophia protectively to her chest. "Do you have any idea how many germs you carry? You probably didn't even wash your hands properly." I stood frozen, heart pounding in my chest. Of course I washed my hands. I was a pediatric nurse for 40 years, Amanda. Exactly 40 years of outdated practices. Things have changed since your day. We don't just kiss babies now. They have no immune system. I tried to remain calm, speaking in the measured tone I'd used with anxious parents throughout my career. Actually, gentle kisses from immediate family members can help build immunity through exposure to— "Stop it!" Amanda's voice rose, causing Sophia to cry harder. "This is exactly why I was hesitant about you visiting. You think you know everything because you were a nurse in the Stone Age. Well, our pediatrician specifically said no kissing, especially from older people who could carry all sorts of viruses without symptoms." The word older hit like a physical blow. I was only 67, hardly ancient, and in excellent health. At that moment, Tyler appeared in the doorway, followed closely by his parents, who apparently had been downstairs all along. "Everything okay in here?" Tyler asked, eyebrow raised. "No," Amanda said, bouncing the crying Sophia. "My mother just ignored our rules about not kissing the baby. She thinks her outdated nursing experience trumps our pediatrician's advice." Mrs. Sullivan stepped forward, taking Sophia expertly from Amanda. There, precious girl. Grandma Barbara's got you." The baby quieted almost immediately in her arms. The message was clear. She was grandma, while I was just my mother. "Perhaps it's best if you cut this visit short," Tyler suggested, not unkindly but firmly. "Amanda needs rest, and Sophia's routine is important." I stood there, humiliated in front of this audience, my gifts still unopened on the table. "I'm sorry if I overstepped. I would never intentionally do anything to harm Sophia." "Your intentions don't matter if your actions are harmful," Amanda replied coldly. "Maybe we can try again in a few weeks when you've had time to read the materials I sent about newborn care." I hadn't received any materials, but arguing would only make things worse. "Of course," I said quietly, gathering my purse. "I'll leave the gifts here. The silver locket was mine as a child, and before that my grandmother's. I thought Sophia might like to have it someday." No one responded. As I walked downstairs alone, I heard Mrs. Sullivan say, "Don't worry, darling. Some people just can't adapt to modern parenting approaches." I drove exactly 5 miles from their house before pulling into a pharmacy parking lot, unable to see through my tears. I sat there for nearly an hour, sobs racking my body as the full impact of Amanda's words echoed in my mind. "Don't touch my baby. You're disgusting." 40 years of nursing, a lifetime of motherly devotion, all dismissed in a single cruel moment. When the tears finally subsided, I felt a sharp pain in my chest, not metaphorical, but physical. For a moment, I wondered if I was having a heart attack like James. The pain eventually eased, but something inside me had fundamentally broken. The drive home passed in a blur, my body functioning on autopilot, while my heart shattered into pieces too small to ever properly reassemble. The days after that devastating visit blended together in a fog of grief. I barely left my bed replaying Amanda's words and expression over and over. My phone remained silent except for work contacts checking on my unusual absence. I called in sick for the first time in years, unable to summon the energy to care for others, when my own soul felt mortally wounded. On the third day, I texted Amanda, "I'm sorry if I upset you. I only wanted to show love to Sophia. Please let me know how I can make this right." Her response came hours later. "We need you to respect our boundaries as parents. We'll contact you when we're ready for another visit." I stared at those cold words until my eyes blurred. Boundaries, as if loving my grandchild was some form of trespassing. After a week of isolation, my former colleague Susan appeared at my door with groceries and concern etched on her face. "You haven't answered calls or texts," she said, pushing past me into the house. "I was worried." She stopped short, taking in my unwashed hair pajamas at 2 in the afternoon and the untouched mail piling up. What happened? The whole story poured out between sobs. Susan listened without interruption, then made tea and sat beside me on the couch. "Opal," she said gently, "I need to say something that might be hard to hear. This incident isn't isolated. Amanda has been treating you poorly for years, and you've been making excuses for her behavior. She's just protective of Sophia." I started to say the defense automatic. "Stop!" Susan held up her hand. "That wasn't protection. That was cruelty. And it's part of a pattern that I and your other friends have noticed since Amanda was in college." "What pattern?" Susan sighed. "Using you for financial support, while simultaneously making you feel inferior, excluding you from important events, dismissing your knowledge and experience, making you feel like you need to earn her approval instead of the other way around." Her words landed like physical blows, yet carried the ring of truth I'd been avoiding. "But I'm her mother," I whispered. "I must have done something to deserve this treatment." "Being someone's mother doesn't make you a doormat," Susan replied firmly. "And no, you didn't deserve this. From everything I've seen over 20 years of friendship, you've been nothing but supportive and loving." That conversation marked the beginning of my painful awakening. Susan insisted I see my doctor, who diagnosed situational depression and recommended therapy. The therapist, Dr. Martinez, specialized in family estrangement and toxic relationships, terms I'd never associated with my situation until then. In those early therapy sessions, I resisted the framing. "Amanda is just finding her way as a new mother," I insisted. "She'll come around." Dr. Martinez was gently persistent. "Let's look at patterns rather than this single incident," she suggested. "Can you tell me about other times you've felt diminished in your relationship with Amanda?" Reluctantly, I began excavating memories I'd buried Amanda's embarrassment when I arrived at school events in my work clothes. Her sighs when introducing me to college friends. Her increasingly critical comments about my appearance, home, and lifestyle. The wedding planning that excluded me. The shower where I was treated as an afterthought. "I see a consistent pattern of emotional manipulation," Dr. Martinez observed after several sessions. "You've been conditioned to believe Amanda's love and approval must be earned through sacrifice and acceptance of disrespect." I bristled at first. "You're making her sound terrible. She's successful and accomplished." Professional success and personal character are different things, Dr. Martinez replied. One can excel in career while failing at basic human kindness. At her suggestion, I began reading my old journals, including entries from Amanda's childhood. I was shocked to discover early warning signs of entitlement and manipulation I'd overlooked or excused. Even at 10, Amanda had shown concerning behaviors, refusing to thank relatives for gifts deemed insufficient, manipulating situations to pit adults against each other, showing kindness primarily when wanting something. Why didn't I see this? I asked Dr. Martinez, heartbroken. Because you were doing what mothers do, seeing the best in your child and believing in their potential for growth. That's not wrong, Opal. But at some point, patterns solidify into character. My physical health deteriorated alongside my emotional struggle. I lost 15 pounds, developed insomnia, and my blood pressure spiked dangerously. My doctor was blunt. This estrangement is literally killing you, Opal. You need to find a way forward that doesn't hinge on Amanda's approval. Susan introduced me to a support group for parents estranged from adult children. Sitting in that circle of hurting parents, I felt less alone. Their stories echoed mine, years of sacrifice met with rejection, the bewildering pain of being erased from their children's narratives, the shame that kept them isolated. Gloria, a 72-year-old grandmother who hadn't seen her grandchildren in 7 years, became my lifeline. The hardest part, she told me, is accepting that we cannot love someone into treating us with respect. That's their choice, not our failure. 6 months passed with minimal contact from Amanda, just terse responses to my occasional texts asking about Sophia. I sent a handmade Christmas stocking for the baby's first Christmas, carefully embroidered with Sophia's name. It was returned unopened with a note, "We're using a curated holiday theme this year." Each rejection reopened the wound, but slowly, incrementally, I began building resilience. I returned to work part-time, finding purpose in caring for children, even as I mourned my relationship with my granddaughter. I joined a community garden, finding therapy in nurturing growing things. I reconnected with old friends I'd neglected while centering my life around Amanda. Then came the email that crystallized everything. Subject line: Sophia's Education Fund. Mom Tyler and I are planning for Sophia's future. We've researched the top preschools in Boston and want to secure her place at Brighthurst Academy. The deposit and first year's tuition are $35,000. Since you've always emphasized education, we thought you might want to contribute as her grandmother. Let me know. No greeting. No personal update. No photos of Sophia. Just a financial request from a daughter who had called me disgusting for showing affection to my grandchild. The final blow came the following week when I ran into Tyler's aunt at a charity event through the hospital. After awkward small talk, she mentioned being sorry to hear about my issues. Issues? I asked, confused. She looked uncomfortable. Amanda mentioned you've been struggling with some mental health problems. That's why they've been limiting contact with Sophia, for her safety. The room seemed to tilt sideways. Amanda had been telling people I was mentally unstable, using that lie to justify cutting me out of Sophia's life. That night, I pulled out all my financial records, decades of careful documentation of every penny spent on Amanda, the college fund built from James' life insurance, the wedding contribution that depleted my savings, the endless stream of gifts, assistance, and support I'd provided even as an adult. For the first time, I allowed myself to feel anger instead of just hurt. Not a destructive rage, but a clarifying fury that burned away the fog of self-doubt. I had been a good mother. I had sacrificed everything for Amanda, and she had not only rejected my love, but actively distorted the truth about me. The next morning, I called my lawyer, Harold, who had handled James' estate years ago. "I need to change my will," I said when we met in his office. "I want to remove my daughter as beneficiary." Harold looked surprised. That's a significant decision, Opal. Are you sure? I've never been more certain of anything, I replied, explaining the situation in detail. Together, we created a new estate plan. The modest house and savings I'd accumulated would go primarily to a trust for the children's hospital, where I'd worked establishing a fund for families who couldn't afford specialized care. A smaller trust would be created for Sophia, accessible when she turned 25, with the condition that she complete community service hours. And if Amanda contests the will, Harold asked. Include a letter explaining my decision, I said firmly. I want her to understand this isn't revenge, it's self-respect after a lifetime without it. As I signed the documents, I felt no satisfaction, only a profound sadness mixed with an unexpected sense of liberation. For the first time in 67 years, I had put my own emotional health first. The weight of constantly seeking Amanda's approval lifted, leaving space for something new to grow in its place. A full year passed after changing my will, bringing unexpected healing and transformation. The early morning that once found me checking my phone for messages from Amanda now saw me tending my community garden plot or preparing for volunteer shifts at the children's hospital. The evenings once spent scrolling through Amanda's social media for glimpses of Sophia became time for book club meetings or dinners with friends. My body reflected this inner healing. I regained the lost weight, my blood pressure normalized, and the chest pains that had plagued me disappeared. My therapist noted the change with approval. You've stopped defining yourself primarily as Amanda's mother, Dr. Martinez observed. You're reclaiming your identity as Opal, nurse friend, community member, woman of worth. This didn't mean the pain had vanished. There were still nights I wept for the relationship with my granddaughter. I might never have days when seeing grandparents with children in the park sent me spiraling into grief. But these moments no longer dominated my existence. I maintained minimal contact with Amanda, sending birthday and Christmas cards to Sophia with no expectations. Most went unacknowledged, though occasionally Amanda would send a formal text, "Card received, thank you." Then came an unexpected encounter at the Burlington Mall. I was shopping for a gift for Susan when I turned a corner and nearly collided with Amanda pushing a stroller. Sophia, now a toddler with bouncing dark curls, sat examining a stuffed bunny. Time seemed to freeze as Amanda and I locked eyes. She looked momentarily panicked, then composed her face into a neutral expression. "Hello, Amanda," I said calmly, my heart racing despite my outward composure. "How are you?" "Fine," she replied stiffly. "Just doing some shopping." My eyes moved to Sophia, drinking in the changes since those photos on social media. Her chubby cheeks, the intelligent eyes so like Amanda's as a child. "She's beautiful," I said softly. Sophia looked up curiously. "Who dat lady?" she asked, pointing at me. Amanda hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "Just someone Mommy knows," she finally said. "Not Grandma. Not even Mother's friend. Someone." The erasure stung, but I maintained my dignity. "It was nice seeing you both," I said, preparing to walk away. Sophia had other ideas. She thrust the stuffed bunny toward me. "Bunny," she announced proudly. I smiled genuinely. "That's a very nice bunny. Does he have a name?" "Hop," Sophia declared with toddler certainty. "That's a perfect name," I replied. Amanda shifted impatiently. "We should go. Sophia has a play date." I nodded, stepping aside. As they passed, I heard Sophia ask, "Nice lady, come too." Amanda didn't respond, quickening her pace toward the exit. That brief interaction, painful as it was, brought unexpected peace. Sophia was thriving, bright, curious, seemingly happy. And I had maintained my composure, showing Amanda that I had found strength beyond the relationship she controlled. That evening, I wrote a letter to be placed with my attorney alongside my will, not for Amanda, but for Sophia to read when she was older. I explained who I was, shared family stories and medical history she might need, and expressed my unconditional love regardless of our separation. I included photos of Amanda as a child, James holding her as a baby, our small family in happier times. I may not be part of your life, I wrote in conclusion, but you have always been part of my heart. The letter completed, I turned my attention to living fully in the present. I joined a travel group for seniors, finally booking that trip to Greece I'd postponed for decades while prioritizing Amanda's needs. Standing on the Acropolis, watching the sunset paint ancient stones gold, I felt James would have been proud of this belated self-care. My circle expanded to include other grandparents in similar situations. We formed a chosen family of sorts, celebrating holidays together, sharing photos of grandchildren we rarely saw, supporting each other through the complex grief of family estrangement. Through this journey, I came to understand that removing Amanda from my will wasn't an act of vengeance, but of truth-telling. The inheritance had become another area where she expected sacrifice without reciprocal respect. By redirecting those resources to children who needed medical care, children like those I dedicated my career to helping, I was honoring my life's true values. Perhaps someday Amanda will recognize what was lost in her rejection of me. Perhaps Sophia will grow curious about the grandmother merely described as someone mommy knows. Perhaps reconciliation lies somewhere in our future. I remain open to that possibility, while no longer orienting my life around its pursuit. What I know with certainty is this love doesn't require accepting abuse. Sacrifice without respect isn't nobility, but self-erasure. And sometimes the most profound act of parental love is modeling the self-respect we hope our children will eventually learn. If my story resonates with you, perhaps you're navigating your own family complexities. Have you ever had to choose between maintaining a relationship and maintaining your dignity? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments. And if this journey has touched something in your heart, please consider subscribing to hear more stories of resilience through life's painful chapters. Remember that your worth isn't determined by someone else's ability to see it clearly. Thank you for listening, and may you find peace, whether through reconciliation or acceptance, on your own path.